They say silence is golden. But the kind of silence in this cold, dark basement was anything but golden. It was deafening. There was nothing unusual about Mia being locked away in the basement, but it was still as frightening as the first time. As her mother walked away, she made sure to say the last stinging words before she closed the door behind her. "You can stay there till the devil comes to talk to you." Mia never cried. She didn't want her mother to know how scared it made her, how much she wanted to cry out loud. Mia felt that if she showed her fear, she would take pleasure, and that was the last thing she wanted. Maybe if she didn't show fear or that it bothered her, her mother would just give up. But deep down, she knew that she would never give up. She knew that her mother would only find new and different ways to torment her. The only thing Mia ever found comfort in was food, mealtime. She enjoyed her mother's cooking, and after all, she learned from the best, her mother. She loved watching her cook. Food was something that always seemed to bring peace to everyone at the table. It held its own certain kind of magic. Mia never understood why she was the only one that suffered from her mother's torment, apart from the rest of her brothers and sisters. She sat there trying to make herself as small as possible in the corner of the basement. Her mother made her scared of things even unseen. She waited till her mother finally felt bored enough to let her out. After about an hour or so, she heard her sister ask, "Are you going to let her out now, Mom?" Mia didn't hear a response, only the click of the door opening slowly. The light coming from the room hurt Mia's eyes after being such pitch dark for so long, so she ran up the stairs and stood before her mom changed her mind. When she reached the top of the stairs, she stood by the open door. She was met with her mother's evil glare. She was famous for this glare. No one ever dared be on the receiving end of that. She knew one wrong word would send her back into the basement again. "Go wash the dishes." Dishes? Mia thought. Another dinner she would miss. She'd have to eat alone again. She finished washing the dishes, hands all red from the hot water her mother would demand that she wash them in, and she fixed herself a plate with whatever was left. Sometimes it made her sad to eat alone, but sometimes it was comforting to be away from her mother's watchful eyes. She ate every crumb, ignoring the sounds of the family in the other room laughing and playing together, because at least she ate. Later that night, Mia woke to the sound of her stomach growling as there wasn't much left from earlier. She listened for any movement outside the door. They were all asleep. She slowly crept her way into the kitchen. She wanted to find anything that she could shove in her mouth. A piece of cake. She stood there with her eyes fixed on this piece of cake, wondering if she dare take it, but the hunger pain was too much. Maybe Mom would blame Dad for it. I mean, he's always putting anything in his mouth as long as it doesn't require any cooking. So Mia took the cake back to her room. She probably knew she'd pay for it later, but she enjoyed every bite. The next morning, Mia woke suddenly with a sudden burst of cold air as Mom yanked the blanket from her with force. "Get up!" She tried to open her eyes as best she could, but it wasn't fast enough for Mom. "I said, get up!" Mia jumped out of bed and stood in attention. She felt the pain in her ear as her mother twisted it and dragged her into the kitchen and shoved her to the stove and stood there in front of her with her arms crossed. She gave her that glare and said, "You know what you did." She stood there waiting. She knew that whatever her mother said, she would just cut her off with, "Shut up. I don't want to hear you talking." So she waited for her punishment. Mom looked over at Dad. "Do it," she commanded. "Show her what happens to thieves." Mom knew having Dad enforce the punishment would hurt him too. She resented him for always trying to protect Mia. Dad shuffled his feet over to her and grabbed her by the wrist. He started beating her hands with a broken wooden spoon. With every hit, she felt the sting of the sharp edges. But she didn't know what pain was worse. The beating on her hands, or the look on her dad's face that showed he didn't want to hurt her. His eyes told her he was sorry. "The other one," Mom yelled. Dad glanced over at Mom. "Liz, I think she's had enough," he said with a cracked voice. "I'll tell you when she's had enough." He looked over at Mia, only to see that she already had extended her hand out for him. It was her way of saying, "It's okay, Dad. Just do it."